back to a brand new episode. We've had a week full of cups, from the Continental Cup semi-finals to the Adobe Women's FA Cup quarterfinals, and yes, we did have a cup set. So let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Okay, we are coming to your feeds slightly later due to a very busy Monday, Soph, which you will know if you've subscribed, by the way. So there's a little suggestion, if you haven't already, to subscribe, which was seamless, I thought.
Why would they know
that we're coming later? Because it would pop up on their feed, so because they'd subscribed. Was that part of it? Were you just helpfully making me keep talking about subscribing? I feel like we've really hammered it home now. But we are going to make up for being a little bit late by giving you a bonus episode, so if you stay tuned, we'll tell you more about it.
I can't promise you too much clarity though. My brain is a bit frazzled, so...
Well, that just makes the episode exciting. Let's see if Sophie can be coherent.
If I get the giggles halfway through, you know why.
Oh God, please don't. Come on, we've got to be focused, we've got to be with it. We've got some great stuff to talk about. We're going to look at the FA Cup quarterfinals. We're going to look back on the Conti Cup semi-finals, which feel like ages ago. We're going to look ahead to another big WSL weekend. Plus, we had a couple of championship results this weekend as well, which might just keep things a little bit interesting in the championship. And Sophie will share your big moment of the week as well.
Christ, okay.
Get your thinking cap on. You've got a cap on, as always. So yes, all that is going to come in this episode, which I'm very excited about, because we've been to, it feels like, quite a few matches this weekend. This week, actually, because midweek games always kind of throws me a little bit. But we're going to start with the FA Cup because that's the most recent. Because I feel like we start one with the Conti Cup, we're going to get confused. So just forget about the Conti Cup for a minute. FA Cup, here we go. Liverpool 0, Leicester 2, Rantala with both of those goals. Brighton 0, Manchester United 4, Turner, Paris, Garcia and Nalsund with the goals. Everton 0, Chelsea 1. Who else but Macario with the goal there. Tottenham 1, Manchester City 1. England and Fowler getting the goals, but Tottenham going through after extra time and on penalties. So I think that's got to be where we start. Yes. Because that was the cup set of the weekend.
It is the upset of the round, and I think I was very proud of Tottenham.
Were you?
Yes.
Lovely.
I think they've shown this season the kind of development that's gone on under Robert Villahan, and everything at the club, from the stuff that happens on the pitch to the recruitment of it to the ambitions to develop a really strong academy and be producing the next set of Lionesses. And I think that's a really good aim, and I think I tweeted yesterday that they're not going to win the title overnight. They're not going to win it. Well, they're not going to win it this season. They're not going to probably win it next season either. It's going to be a good 3-4 years before they're even in contention in that respect. And we need to remember to take it slow and
be patient,
because I think we always overhype the ones who do well. But I think they are building foundations finally that will last and see them through. And they've got such a good group of players. And you saw that against City. They were outplayed a bit in the first half, I think, but in the second half, and certainly in extra time, they were the better team. And each and every one of the players on the pitch, or the subs as well, just played out of their skin. They gave everything for the cause and ran. And, there were some really nice moments in there, from the penalty shootout to James Turner scoring the winning goal. But I think it was a well-deserved reward for someone that, they lost to Manchester City 7-0 in November. Yeah. So from there to now, for that to happen is pretty special.
Yeah, and I feel like they've played Man City enough bloody times to figure out how to beat them, and they did that. But Christ, life comes at you fast for Manchester City, doesn't it? But last week we were praising the fact that they'd signed a new deal with Gareth Taylor, and they were potentially, in for a treble. They were still in the FA Cup, they were still in the Conti Cup, they're hunting down Chelsea in the league, and 1 week later and they're out of both cups, and shite, they've only got the league left to hang on to. A tough week for them. It
is. It's a bit like, when the manager gets awarded the manager of the month, and there's always that supposed curse on them once they've awarded it.
Is that what it was?
I think the same goes for signing contract extensions mid-season. And I don't it's not to say that Gareth Taylor shouldn't be the Manchester City boss for the next 3 years. That's not what this is about. But just wait. You can just wait until May, until you've done what you want to do. I just think it, like, subliminally, I can't say that word, but
Subliminally.
yeah, that's a word, adds a different layer of pressure that maybe is subconscious, but at the same point in time does matter, and it's going to come into this narrative of the fact that they were in a treble 7 days ago and now they're only in one competition, and they've just signed their manager on for the next 3 years.
Yeah, well, look, well done Spurs, okay, because there were times where I thought it wasn't going to happen when Beth England came on in the second half and missed a sitter, and I just kind of thought it was going to be one of those days. It was going to be like, and we're coming to it, the Everton-Chelsea game, where you thought they deserved the equaliser, but they just weren't going to get it. But that didn't happen. There was drama and injury time. Oh God, Chiara Keating and Laia Alexandri, really bad case of miscommunication there. Keating coming out for the ball. Alexandri obviously got a call and kind of ducked, and it bounced, and Beth England was in there like a poacher, and she got the goal to take them to extra time and then to penalties. So their first ever FA Cup semi-final.
Can I just add, that was also part of Amy James Turner's, I have to say her full name now, but AJT's new number 9 era, where she gets pushed up front when the going gets
she doesn't really bright
in games, and she got the knock on or the flick on to set Beth away, or to set up that chance for Beth.
So well done her.
And then scores the winning penalty.
Okay, well, moving on then to Everton 0, Chelsea 1. We are going to touch, of course, on the Conti Cup semi-final, because it was a similar kind of jobby here. It was a sluggish performance from them, perhaps not what we're used to from Chelsea. Myra Ramirez had gone off injured during the Conti Cup in the first half. She was still missing. Then Natalie Bjorn went off during the first half for Chelsea as well. So they've been forced to kind of reshuffle the pack. They're dealing with quite a few injuries. But at the same time, you also then have to give credit to Everton, who once again managed to put out the pieces of the puzzle and made a team.
Yeah, they continue to baffle me, and that's not in a bad way, it's in a good way. Just because of the resources that they have. We know that they can't spend any money at the moment because of the situation of the club, and the injuries that they've had, the illnesses that they've had, and the outgoings that they've had just have made this season really difficult, and yet they keep performing, and the one thing they're missing is that kind of clinical finishing. That's the problem for them at the moment. They had their chances. Elise Stenovic hit the bar with a free kick.
Well, Musovic tipped it off the bar.
Musovic made a phenomenal save for that one, and then somehow, I don't know how she did it, but Katja Snoy turning it wide, just turning it wide, and you would probably, knowing the kind of striker that she is, you would probably bet on her turning that home, and yet it just went inches wide. And that's the difference, they could have taken it to extra time.
Emma Hayes said that. She said the difference was just that little bit of quality, that little bit of experience, and I think that's what drags them over the line when they're having those kind of tough games, those key moments where they've got the right players in the right place at the right time, who've been there, done that, don't feel the pressure, and can put the ball away. And I think they're the little bits there that Everton need to work on, I suppose.
And for all of Chelsea's injury issues, they brought on Lauren James, Kat McCurry, and someone else?
Melanie Leupolz.
With like 70 minutes or 65 minutes.
63rd minute it was.
Yeah,
McCarry came on in 63.
So they all came on the 63rd minute.
And when did she score?
It's 66. So incredible. That's 3 minutes since she came on. The first one that she scored for Chelsea last weekend was
6 minutes.
So she's halving the time.
I'm expecting 90 seconds next time.
But, she, like, that kind of strength and depth that you have, even when you have so many games and do have some injury problems your own, you still look to their bench and go, they've got the quality to turn things around.
Yeah, and they're still fighting on 4 fronts. They've still got the FA Cup, the Conti Cup, the League and the Champions League, and they've got Champions League is starting next week, so it's a game every 3 days now for Chelsea. So they're seriously having to dig deep and use their depth, particularly with the injuries they have. Yeah, it's why they brought all the players.
But we've seen it over the years with Chelsea. They don't play well every single game, but they do generally, more often than not, find a way to win.
They do. Okay, moving on to the third. Well, this was a Saturday game, the first actually, FA Cup quarter-final, which was Liverpool 0, Leicester 2. Not the most exciting of games, I have to say. Worth pointing out that Willie Kirk, the Leicester City boss, was not on the touchline this weekend, with an internal investigation taking place at the club. Susie Rack from The Guardian broke that piece, so it's worth having a read of her article, because all of the information that's available is in there. But Liverpool started well. They were just quite wasteful.
They were. It just wasn't a classic, was it? And there were very few chances. It wasn't particularly pretty football by either side. I think Leicester grew into the game, and when you have a player like Jutta Rankler, who's absolutely phenomenal, she's having such a great first season in the WSL, and she's had a great impact on the side. But then when she can score goals like she did with her second one, especially, you have a real weapon there to be used. And Liverpool just weren't at the races, I don't think. I think Matt Beard will be really disappointed at that kind of sluggishness, I guess, in terms of what was at stake for that game. You could kind of not excuse it in the league, but you could kind of maybe understand a bit of relaxedness in the league.
Yeah.
Because they're in fifth place and they're doing better than they ever could imagine. So you can imagine that kind of mentality could be hard to keep up every week, a little bit. But yeah, in the cup, you would think you would be extra G'd up to reach the semi-final of an FA Cup. And
maybe the occasion got to them. Maybe they looked at Leicester and said, we should be able to beat them. We should actually get to a semi-final of an FA Cup. And maybe that kind of it just nerves got to them. I don't know.
They were missing a couple of key players. Nagano wasn't playing and Kerry Holland was still suspended. So they were both out. So that does make a difference, especially in those key midfield areas, and kind of that energetic pressing football just wasn't there. But you still got to say you've got to put out a performance at least. Yeah.
Well, it is a first semi-final for Leicester, which again is very exciting. To have two teams into the semi-finals, haven't been in there before, is pretty special. The final then, FA Cup quarter-final, was far less competitive, sadly. Brighton 0, Manchester United 4. And it was a kind of tough one to call, purely because we've had some interesting fixtures between these two before. This was, of course, the same time they met each other at the last FA Cup quarter-final last year, with Manchester United winning 3-2 and Rachel Williams scoring that winning goal in the 89th minute. So we've seen more competitive fixtures from these two in the past, but Brighton just didn't turn up.
Brighton's balloon burst, I think.
Did it?
Yes.
Lovely. A little bit of alliteration there.
I think they probably got very high after the game last week.
They scored all their goals.
Where they beat Bristol 7-3. And I think maybe everyone got a little bit carried away with the progress that they've been making in recent weeks.
Have they been making much progress in recent weeks?
No, but I think people did think that after the Bristol City game that they were showing signs of advancing.
Okay.
And I'm not entirely sure they have. I think a lot of that was
Bristol capitulating
and their poor defensive performances, and the fact that they, a lot of those goals could and should have been prevented. So maybe that's too negative on Brighton, but I think
they were poor though.
But they turned out against Manchester United and they were really, really not good. They just couldn't. They started well. The first 5 minutes they were really energetic.
Well, there's something.
And then United just figured it out and completely smothered any kind of possession or any time on the ball in the midfield area.
The gears were clicked into place for Man United. They were running smoothly, weren't they?
Those front three of Lucia Garcia, Nikita Paris and Melvin Mallard were completely stretching the play and running at Brighton's defence, and they were really struggling, especially down that right side. I think Lucia Garcia's side, in that first half she just kept breaking into acres of space where Emma Coolberry, I don't know where she was. She just wasn't there. So, and by half-time, when you're 3-0 up at half-time, you it's so hard to try and come out of that and turn it around.
Yeah, I will also give a shout-out to the two girls we spoke to pre-match, two Manchester United fans, who predicted a 4-0 win and a Millie Turner header. So, I don't know how you did that, but Millie Turner did score with a header. Keith scored. Lucia Garcia scored, and Lisa Nelson scored an absolute beautiful strike in the second half.
The swerve on it was brilliant, and To be fair, we have to shout out Sophie Bagley in the Brighton goal, because without her, it would have been
far worse.
A cricket score, I think.
Yeah.
So.
An FA Cup win. I know, look, there's another couple of steps to go for Man United to actually achieve that, but could an FA Cup win potentially change the outlook of United's season?
It's hard to say, isn't it? Because they've been so kind of inconsistent in the league, and like you look at the press from them against Brighton, and then you look at the game against Arsenal 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, and that press was non-existent. So it's quite hard to tell. I think Mark Skinner called it a total performance, and he was very pleased with them. He said it was one of their best performances of the season. I probably agree with him. And he said that the hurt of losing the final last year will spur them on to try and go one better this year. And he said that him and the team will do everything they can to get back to Wembley. That he knows it will be tough, but that's what they're aiming for. So he's hoping to sort of use that kind of emotion of negative emotion to kind of drive them forward. And I guess in a cup,
anything can happen.
Anything can happen, but it's also one-off games, right? So you don't need to be thinking about your form necessarily to perform.
Yeah. So at the time of record, we are recording this on Monday night. We don't know the draw for the semi-finals, which is happening very early in the morning, tomorrow morning. But here's hoping for a Leicester v Spurs and a United v Chelsea, because I'd just like to have Leicester or Spurs going to a final. I think that would be pretty special. Okay, it feels like an age ago. Cast your mind back to Wednesday. Conti Cup semi-final between Arsenal and Aston Villa. Now the Conti Cup final has been decided. It is, drumroll, Arsenal-Chelsea again. Arsenal beating Aston Villa 4-0. Really dominant performance from the Gunners. And I'm delighted that Stina Blackstenius got a hat-trick. Big fan of hers. Been on the Blackstenius bus the whole time. And she got a first half hat-trick. But really, I wasn't really expecting that level of dominance, but I guess you have to factor in that Aston Villa have quite a few injuries, and Daphne Van Domselaar was out for that as well. What did you expect? Did you think maybe Aston Villa could?
I didn't think, their squad is stretched at the moment. I know Kirsty Hansen had to come off at half time. She almost got subbed, I think, just before the first goal, and then was kept on. So she was struggling quite early on. They didn't have Leon, who was still away with Canada at the time. They didn't have, as you said, Van Domselaar. I think there were a couple of other niggles around, I think Simone McGill had a niggle as well, although she came on in the second half. So they weren't at their best. They did have Rachel Daly back, though, and she was getting very, very frustrated. But I wasn't expecting the kind of capitulation that they did in that first half, where kind of Beth Mead just tore apart their left side, and there was so much space for Beth Mead to run into, and if she was going more central, if she was inverting a bit, then Frida Mornan would come out on the right, and kind of that fluidity of the front three or four were just creating havoc for Arsenal. But yeah, Beth Mead was for Aston Villa, but Arsenal were just on top from the very first whistle. They could have had more in the second half.
Stina could have had 5.
Yeah, Stina was that's what you expect from her. She stretches the line, she runs at defences, and she breaks through defences, and she had her shooting boots on again on the day. And I think it was interesting that we saw Alessia Russo out on the left as well, because I kind of thought she'd be sitting in behind Stina in the 10, but then obviously with Marnham on the pitch as well, that probably made sense. But yeah, it was just interesting to see those different combinations come into play.
Yeah,
and it's something useful. I think they got their 4 goals. That's got the clean sheet as well. It's pretty, confident performance from Arsenal ahead of what's going to happen on Friday.
And a good solid, 70-ish minutes for Leah Williamson, I think, as well. And she
had the weekend off as well.
And they had the weekend off.
And they've got all of their players at the Gold Cup back for Friday,
So huge game, unlike Chelsea, who also played midweek against Manchester City and had to travel up to Manchester as well. And I know
Emma Hayes said afterwards that she hoped very strongly that it was the last time she would have to go there in her career at Chelsea.
Well, she might still draw Man United. Who's got the home game?
No, at the Academy Stadium.
Oh, sure.
Stadium.
Okay. I know this has been said probably on multiple different podcasts and shows, and probably multiple times by us, but it was very much the reverse of the WSL game that we saw a couple of weeks ago, where Manchester City got the early goal and then kind of very much sat back in the second half and defended resolutely and kind of held on for dear life. And it was like that. Chelsea got the early goal. Lauren James with it, something like 5 minutes in, I want to say. And they were just kind of happy to let Manchester City have possession. And they banked up and they were solid and they were gritty and they defended well.
Their structure of the ball was perfect, especially in that first half. And you could see City's players getting really, really frustrated with their inability to find a way through. Chelsea's they were playing 4-4-2 when they weren't out of possession. So they just couldn't get through those banks of four. And I think at one point Layla Wahhabi, threw her arms in the air. There was Alex screaming, going like, where do I pass to? Kind of remembered that from last year's draw, I think, with Aston Villa, was it? Where they just kind of ran out of ideas on what to do in that first half. They did come out energised in that second half. I think they were better and they did cause Chelsea a few problems.
Well, they forced Hannah Hampton into a number of big saves.
Especially with Bunny Shaw running through, and she was really all over Jess Carter. I think she had her number that day. So, yeah, they were, you could say, unlucky in that respect, but at the same time, Hannah Hampton's performance, and I think the overall energy and effort of the whole Chelsea team kind of got them over the line in the end. And as Emma Hayes also said after the game, she's come up to the Joy Stadium. I keep calling it the Academy Stadium.
Me too.
The Joy Stadium. Many, many times in her time at Chelsea, and have played a lot better than that and come away with nothing. So I think she was quite happy that, they didn't play well, but they came away with the win, and that's actually all that matters.
And they're through to another final.
Because who cares how you play? No one remembers how you played.
Gareth Taylor was raging at the end because he thought they should have had a penalty, and he was really grumpy in his post-match, but I actually really enjoyed seeing the passion from him on the sideline in the kind of final 10 minutes or so. He was really chanting the players and up and down the touchline, and he was very, very passionate.
He was struggling to find... I think that's one problem that I think with Gareth Taylor's sides is
in-match changes.
Yeah, so he's very much sets out with pretty much, well, it changed a little bit at the weekend, but he basically names the same starting 11 if he can every single game. And then I think if it's all very well and good because it works a lot of the time, but those odd occasions where it doesn't work, I'm not so sure he knows quite what to do in game to change it around, because it's still very much the same.
Okay.
You might change personnel, but it's not changing tactics much, I don't think. So I think he does struggle a little bit with that, and I think Emma Hayes used her substitutions, well, she had to, but she used them better than he did.
Agreed. Well, that final will take place between Arsenal and Chelsea on the 31st of March in the Molineux Stadium in Wolverhampton. So
you will be going.
I will be going. Okay, we have to give a quick nod to the Championship because there were two rearranged fixtures at the weekend. I don't know why Birmingham didn't play one of their rearranged fixtures because they have a few. But Reading beat Charlton 1-0.
Huge.
Massive. And Palace beat Sheffield 1-0, which means the table, Sunderland are sitting at the top on 34 points with 17 games played. Palace just behind them on 33 points with 16 games played. Then you've Southampton in third on 30 points with 17 games played. Charlton in fourth on 30 points with 16 games played. And Birmingham, I still have to keep them in it because while they're only on 26 points, they've only played 15 games. So that could have an impact as well. So still really tight up the top, still somewhat a 5-horse race. Convenient for talking about horse racing, that is where we're going on Wednesday.
It's still Palace's, I think.
It is, to lose, isn't it?
Because they've scored so many goals as well. So I think that creates an advantage for them as well.
Bottom of the table then, we have Watford at the bottom on 12 points with 15 games played, Lewis on 13 points with 16 games played, and London City Lionesses on 16 with 17 games played. And I think Sheffield are on 17 and they've got 16, so they're not too far away out of the potential relegation
Reading
fight.
gave themselves a massive cushion yesterday with that win.
Yeah, so
huge, because they're up to 8th now, and I think the cushion is 6 points.
Okay.
So that is massive for them. Obviously, it's a Championship and everything changes every week, but we're going into the last 6 weeks of the season now, so
still all to play for.
We're in the running.
Brilliant. Okay, we're going to very briefly go back to the WSL just to preview the upcoming weekend, because once again it could be pivotal. I feel like we say this all the time, but it could be pivotal in the title race, particularly because Chelsea are taking on Arsenal on Friday night at Stamford Bridge, and then Manchester City take on Brighton, I think, on Sunday. So, this could be a potential kind of upset if something happens. If something happens at Stamford Bridge, we don't know. Chelsea are on 37 points. Manchester City are on 37 points with a lesser goal difference, and then Arsenal just behind on 34 points. If Chelsea win, do we think Arsenal then are out of the title race? That we can drop a horse?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think a result or a win for Arsenal keeps them very much in it.
Okay.
Even a result.
Interesting. Okay, so we could be on the next podcast talking about...
It would be hard, don't get me wrong, but...
It could be all different.
For a draw, it would be hard for them to claw it back, but it's still possible, whereas I think when you have a 6 points difference from the top, then you've got serious problems.
I'm excited. Well, we will chat on our next live on Saturday and we can go through it all, which is very exciting. Okay, Sophie, have you thought of a moment of the week?
I have.
Excellent. What is it?
I'm going to go with, I think, the predictable one. I need to start not being predictable, but this one's going to be predictable because it was lovely. I think Becky Spencer's performance in the shootout for Tottenham, just because she's not played that much. Well, she played the start of the season for Tottenham, kind of got replaced for a few games, and has been in goal now a couple of games back to back in goal. And she saved those 2 penalties off Alex Greenwood and Chloe Kelly, 2 players who would you probably sure, so almost certain to
Sophie's
score,
not a better, but she wants to say would bet your house on to score, because she says that a lot, but you're not really a gambler.
No, I'm not at all. I'm trying to find other ways of saying it, but it's just like my natural phrase. Anyway, 2 players who are very good at scoring penalties, and she denied them both. She's been at Tottenham a long time, and she was absolutely delighted afterwards, and I'm delighted for her.
Do you want to know how predictable we are? I picked the same moment for upfront. Same brain, you and I. Anyway, we are looking forward to this week because we've got the Be Inspired Women in Football conference tomorrow, which I'm really looking forward to. And as promised, we have got an Everton special, a bonus episode coming out this week too. We went to chat with Aurora Galley, Courtney Brosnan and Heather Payne last week, and they were brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to releasing that one. So keep your ears out for that. But the best way to make sure you don't miss it is...
subscribe.
Yes, Sophie, you're getting on board with this. If you fancy leaving us a comment or a review too, we'd be very, very grateful. But thank you once again for tuning in, and we'll be back on your feeds on Thursday.